There's a moment, quiet, almost unnoticeable, when your brain decides you're not thinking about something. Even if you're begging it to stop. It often begins in the softest places. A late-night room. The dim glow of a lamp. You're exhausted but awake, lying on your side, staring at nothing in particular. You tell yourself just one more thought, one more replay of the conversation you had earlier, or the mistake that still stings. But instead of closure, another thought arrives. And another. And another. Before long, your mind feels like a carousel you didn't agree to ride, spinning faster with every passing moment. You try to sit still inside your own head, but the thoughts feel louder than the room around you, like a radio someone forgot to turn off. Here's the quiet truth your mind doesn't tell you. Rumination doesn't feel like thinking, feels like drowning, and yet your brain insists it's helping. And in this video, you're going to learn why your thoughts won't stop, why your brain loops when you're overwhelmed, and how understanding the neuroscience behind rumination can give you back a sense of control. By the end, you'll not only understand your mind better, but you'll walk away with tools to break the cycle when your thoughts won't give you peace. Your mind loops for a reason, and that reason is more human and more hopeful than you think. Picture this. Someone sitting at their kitchen table long after the rest of the world has gone still. Their hands wrapped around a warm mug, untouched for minutes. They're replaying something they said at work, but now it's not just the words. It's the tone, the look on the other person's face, the possible interpretations, the imagined consequences. The brain tries to solve the unresolvable, to rewrite a moment that cannot be rewound. Feels like a search for closure, but it ends up feeling like quicksand. The harder you try to climb out, the more stuck you become. Rumination often begins gently, innocently, but it has a way of evolving into something heavier. Something that makes your chest feel hollow and your stomach tighten. Something that makes your own mind feel like unfamiliar territory. And if you've ever wondered why you fall into these loops, this is where psychology steps in with clarity. Rumination is not overthinking. Overthinking is a conscious, controlled effort. Rumination is automatic, closer to a reflex than a decision. In psychology, it's defined as a repetitive, passive focus on distress, its possible causes, and its consequences. The key word is repetitive. The brain keeps circling because it thinks repetition equals resolution. But the brain's wiring doesn't always distinguish between problem-solving and self-criticism. Your brain's default mode network, its background mental activity, gets louder when your mind is unoccupied or under stress. And when the default network activates without guidance, it drifts toward emotional memory, self-referential thinking, and old fears. That's why your thoughts spiral at night, or when you're alone, or when you feel uncertain. The amygdala, your emotional alarm system, doesn't just signal danger. It tracks social threats, embarrassment, regret, and perceived mistakes. And the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for reasoning, tries to step in to solve the emotional discomfort. But here's the twist. When you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed, the prefrontal cortex loses strength. The emotional centers take over. Suddenly, the mind tries to fix pain with thinking. But thinking isn't the tool that heals emotional wounds. The loop becomes a tug-of-war between parts of your brain that were never meant to fight this battle alone. For many people, rumination is the brain's attempt to regain a sense of control, a form of mental scanning. Where did this go wrong? What did I miss? How can I prevent this from happening again? Feels like protection, but it becomes a trap, a neurological echo chamber. And yet, this is the part so many people never hear. Rumination usually begins with a wound that deserves compassion, not scrutiny. You ruminate because something mattered. You ruminate because you care. You ruminate because your brain is trying to protect you from the next hurt, even if the strategy is flawed. There's a cinematic moment that happens in almost every person's mental life. A turning point so subtle you often don't recognize it until you're deep inside it. It's the moment when a single thought, one that began softly, almost innocently, suddenly becomes the center of your attention. Maybe it's a comment someone made a week ago. Maybe it's a decision you're afraid was wrong. Maybe it's the fear that you've disappointed someone. It could be something you said without thinking or something you didn't say at all. You revisit it. You dissect it. You zoom into every detail like a detective searching for clues. But beneath that reply, there's an emotional truth pulsing quietly. I'm afraid this says something about me. That fear is the real story. Rumination is just the soundtrack. There's a shocking moment in the psychology of rumination that most people never learn. One that, once you understand it, changes everything. It's this. Your brain doesn't ruminate on what is true. It ruminates on what feels unresolved. This is why even when you find a logical explanation, your brain doesn't relax. Rumination isn't seeking logic. It's seeking emotional relief. It's trying to metabolize a feeling that hasn't been fully processed. And here is where emotional insight shifts the entire picture. Most people believe rumination is about the fear of the past. But it's actually about the fear of repeated future pain. The brain replays old conversations not to criticize you, but to prepare you. It imagines worst-case scenarios not to torture you, but to shield you. Rumination is a misguided survival strategy, a form of emotional hypervigilance. You are not broken for feeling this way. You are human. You are wired for survival. Imagine your thoughts as waves hitting a shoreline. At first, they crash loudly, one after another, relentlessly. But if you stop fighting the waves and instead observe them, something changes. The brain calms when it feels seen. Emotions are quiet when they are named. When you shift from "why am I thinking this?" to "what is this thought trying to protect me from?" you step out of the loop and into awareness. Brains don't heal by force. They heal with understanding. Rumination often masks deeper needs. The need for reassurance, for clarity, for connection, for forgiveness, for boundaries, for rest. And when those needs go unmet, the mind fills the space with noise. The loops become placeholders for conversations you haven't had, emotions you haven't processed, truths you're scared to admit. But here's the empowering twist. The moment you become aware of that pattern, the cycle begins to loosen. When your mind loops, it means the emotional brain is speaking in the only language it knows: repetition. Your job is not to silence it, but to translate it. The more gently you approach your thoughts, the less power they have. When you label the rumination, "This is my brain trying to protect me," the prefrontal cortex activates again. You regain control not through force, but through understanding. And maybe the most comforting truth is this: no one's brain spirals when they feel safe. Rumination is not a flaw. It's a signal, a flag your mind raises when something within you needs attention. And this brings us to the resolution, one that isn't loud but steady. Rumination loses its grip when you face the underlying emotion with compassion instead of judgment. When you stop trying to think your way out and instead allow yourself to feel your way through. When you remind your mind that not every fear is a danger, and not every thought is a threat. So, if your thoughts have been loud lately, if your mind keeps circling the same memory, the same mistake, the same what, let this be the moment you soften toward yourself. The moment you remember, your brain isn't working against you. It's trying, in the only way it knows, to keep you safe. And if this helped you understand your mind a little more, stay with this channel. Keep learning, keep growing, keep building resilience through awareness. Videos like this are made to give you tools, not just to understand the mind, but to live more peacefully with it. You don't have to fight your thoughts. You just have to learn their language. And you're doing that one insight at a time.